now hit Michigan.
Yeah.
Which is, it's another problem with the NCAA is they investigate you, and it takes them 18 freaking years to get their notice to you.
Well, they don't have any real power to force you to, and it's
Force you to what?
Well, they don't have subpoena power, and there's challenges with that, and that's one of the things they're saying is that Jim Harbaugh just refused to let him look at messages and relevant information, and then he left Michigan.
Well, Moore deleted his messages.
52 of them, which, by the way, burner phone people, when do we stop using university cell phones that they can get access to? The university turns them over. They can find your messages when you delete them.
Especially when you know that you're cheating.
Yes.
Cover your tracks,
This
dumbass.
is the part. So this dumbass, the day that the story breaks on Connor Stallions, deletes 52 messages between him and Connor Stallions. They got the messages back.
Yeah, exactly. They recovered them via
Sounds
device.
like they got him dead to rights.
They recovered them via device imaging.
Yeah.
And then they said he then started to, he's like, oh,
Hey,
well, in that case, okay, here's the rest of
it. Sorry.
And so then he started to produce them to enforcement staff. So they've read through those. It doesn't say in here what's in those, but Moore is there's 7 members of that football program accused of violating rules here.
And a couple of them already left. They're out in the NFL with Harbaugh.
But he faces a possible suspension and show cause, and he could lose his job.
Yeah. Well, again, this could be a USC thing. It's one thing to commit violations, and the recruiting stuff that they're accused of, I don't care. It's like one wrote a check for a dad's golf tournament, and this was before NIL was a thing, which I don't care. All right, you contacted a sophomore when you shouldn't have. That stuff, whatever. But the whole Connor Stallions thing, dude, they scouted 13 opponents 58 times. They proved that he was indeed on the sidelines in disguise for Central Michigan recording, that there was an operation of at least 7 other people involved in this and at least 1 other full-time staff member that knew about it. So get out of here. Like, you did this whole, it was a one-man thing and we had no idea about it. It turns out it was an absolute lie. I mean, Jim Harbaugh gave a statement today with the Chargers where he's still doing I had no idea. He said he was raised right.
Here's what he said.
Jackass.
The Jim Harbaugh quote is, no one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize and make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I was not aware nor complicit in those said allegations. Now back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Jim, God.
Fantastic.
Yeah, again, Jim, the whole one-man rogue thing, that's gone. And you can debate all you want. Like, Michigan won that national title. I mean, they weren't filming Washington. They weren't filming Alabama. They won it fair and square. But again, they're doing this whole, we knew nothing about it and we had nothing to do with it. That's an absolute lie. And they will get in trouble because it's one thing to commit a violation. It's another thing to actively try to thwart and cover up an NCAA investigation, which is what USC got hammered on. By the way, one of these coaches is caught in messages trying to tell a player to lie to help cover this up. Like, I'm telling you, Michigan may end up in some trouble here. If the NCAA has any sort of balls, and I don't know if they do at this point, they've got these messages. Is it Sharon or Sharon? Did we figure out?
Stand by.
We're working on it.
Okay. How about this? Coach Moore may be in some real trouble and could lose his job over this.
Don't you think Michigan, though, if he loses his job, I don't know, I thought it was kind of weird to promote him in the first place. I get it. You just want a title. You keep some continuity. But they lost a bunch of transfers. I was looking today at the transfer portal. They had 8 guys transfer in and 22 transfer out. I mean, it's kind of weird. They to me feel like, and this is from afar, but they feel like a low-key mess. After Harbaugh left.
Could be. Because
of the Stallions thing and then the promotion of Moore and then a bunch of defections.
Yep.
And yet today they were in the top 10.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like, if this ends up being a thing, Michigan's run, because remember, over the last handful of years, with the exception of this last year, let me pull this up. Jim Harbaugh at one point, he was 49-26 at Michigan. Jim Harbaugh had to take a pay reduction. Jim Harbaugh was on the verge of losing his job, and then they went on that monster tear. And by the way, he was 40-3 after the Connor Stallions thing. that is not the reason why they were in 40-3. They did a great job of recruiting. They did a great job of in the transfer portal. Did a really nice job in coaching their guys up. But it is, you can't deny that 49-26, on the verge of losing your job, you implement this plan, which was 58 games scouted, 58 games, knowingly covered it up. It was a program-wide thing. It was not a lone wolf thing, as they led you to believe. Turns out that's an absolute crock of S. Look, and now you actively lied to the NCAA. You covered it up. You deleted messages. You tried to get at least one of your players to lie about it. I mean, at some point, there has to be some sort of punishment. You can't just say, hey, we don't respect the NCAA, so we get to do whatever the hell we want. That's not the way that works.
Well, yeah, it is weird. It makes you wonder why they just so brazenly were like, oh yeah, Moore's the guy.
Yeah.
Like
and
it
is
just,
Sharon, by the way.
Sharon Moore. They totally ignored all this stuff. But I mean, what I was getting at is I think the run, it kind of feels like the run was over anyway.
True.
In
but
that
this may put the nail in it.
In that the wrong coach was hired. You're kind of, it was like Helfrich.
Yeah.
The Helfrich hire.
Yeah.
You know, you want to keep the continuity because it was so good what you had going on.
Very rarely does that work, though.
But you also had a lot of defections.
Yeah.
You have this Connor Stallion stuff. Maybe Michigan's just better resetting with a long-term coach search. I mean, it's a coveted program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I kind of felt like they did themselves. I know Moore won the Ohio State game without Harbaugh, and he won all the games without Harbaugh. So I get that, but I don't know. It just kind of felt like maybe they were a little hasty in just promoting him, or short-sighted in promoting him.
And remember, they really couldn't, because Harbaugh kept him on the dangle for a while. So by the time Harbaugh took the job,
I guess that's true.
They didn't really have another choice.
So maybe they're happy if Moore gets a show cause and gets suspended.
It's possible. As someone,
like, fine,
Vancouver Forward text line, Moore kind of reeks of the fall guy here. It's possible. Just hang him out to dry, and then, like you said, restart. And
it's all a genius plan.
Go get someone else. It's just, I'll be interested to see if Michigan ends up losing 3 or 4 games this year, and it may have just been, you know, they kind of went out on top, and like you said, the run is over. You know, Michigan hadn't won a national title since, what, 1997?
Well, it's just funny to me how they win the title, and then Harbaugh leaves.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh, Michigan was in the same category as in terms of the lexicon, the way we talked about them, as Washington."
Yeah.
Because Washington was in the title game, lost a coach, a bunch of guys transfer out, of Michigan. Like I said, they had 22 guys leave.
Similar, yeah.
But yet, somewhere over the last 2 months, we have managed to flip it back to Michigan is watch out for Michigan in the Big Ten, and they're a powerhouse. Yeah, so I don't really understand that. Again, that goes back to the groupthink media crap that I just feel like I don't know where that comes from.
And the Michigan helmet means more than the Washington helmet. And look, and Michigan still brings back a lot on defense, and maybe it's just the way it ended. Like the last time we saw Michigan, and this is where I'll give, you know, I'm glad they're not talking about stripping a national title, because that's just dumb, because the film did not help Michigan physically lay an ass whooping on all those teams. And that is a physical, tough-nosed football team. But just because something didn't make like all the difference in the world doesn't mean that you just get to do something, and then when you get caught, you lie about it, you cover it up, and you're like, oh, we would have won without it anyways. You can't do, you just can't do that. And you're so right about the groupthink thing. And Michigan will always get the benefit of the doubt, and a school like Washington won't. And then watch, if Michigan does have a bad year, then the narrative will completely change, and we'll do the next man up for Michigan, and that Moore was a bad hire anyways, but the next guy up at Michigan will immediately have them back there winning national titles, when in reality, again, they haven't been that great since the 90s.
You know, it's interesting you brought this up, but the more I think about it, what if Michigan did put more in there, knowing that all this they knew stuff was coming down from the NCAA.
Yeah.
So what if they said, all right, well, let's just do this. Let's throw this guy in there. He won, but I mean, he's deserving. He won a couple games
without Harbaugh.
So let's put him in there, and knowing full well when this stuff comes down, we can pivot to the coach we really want down the road.
Urban Meyer, calling Urban Meyer.
And by the way, Deal's right. Vancouver Ford text line. Michigan, Ohio State might need new coaches soon. What kind of S conference did Oregon join here? What is this? What is this garbage?
Wait till Jed Fish leaves Washington to go take the Michigan job.
You're speaking Japanese.
Gets fired.
You piece of garbage!
Oh, it's just interesting to see if the NCAA has any sort of backbone here, because it sounds like Michigan is just saying, "Hey, we've already got punished by the conference for this. You're not going to take away our national title. No one respects that. We'll just pay a big fine and shut up and just go away."
They like to drink their haterade and eat their hater tots.
But if you can do that, if you can just buy your way out of trouble, why then why even have rules at that point? If you can just,
Well,
and you can't tell me, I know Harbaugh was probably gone anyways, but you can't tell me, just like the Pete Carroll thing. Pete Carroll to this day still claims that the USC thing had nothing to do with him leaving. He's like, oh, it just so happened I left for the NFL and then the hammer fell. I don't know what you're talking about. Harbaugh is going to do that to the day he dies too. He'll be like, oh, I had nothing to do with it. Again, Harbaugh knew what was on hard drives. Harbaugh knew what was out there. And that he was wanted to go anyways. And he, but that had to have played a role. It had to have played a role knowing that this was going to eventually resurface.
kind of felt like he was out of there soon anyway.
Yes.
Even without the Connor Stallion stuff.
Yeah, and this was just the icing on the cake.
He was taking other interviews before the Chargers, too. It wasn't like that was the first potential leap. He wanted to be like the Vikings guy, too, remember?
Yeah, but there's no way he's coming back with
No.
once the Connor Stallion stuff happened.
Yes.
Then he's like, that was the.
And that was too, like I
He's
said, that was Pete Carroll was flirting. And I remember when he took the Seattle job, there were a lot of people that were like, of all the jobs, why did you take the Seattle job? And some people to this day believe because it was the one that was available when he needed the ride out of town. He's like, hey, and by the way, he was right, because that train came down the tracks and ran over the USC program. And Pete wasn't going to stick around to do that. By the way, can we also talk about, too, the fact that Chip Kelly got a show cause? Had Chip Kelly stayed at Oregon, he would have been fired.
Yep.
Shut up.
Chip was getting fired by Oregon because he got a show cause for the NCAA.
It was like the 3-year show cause. He wasn't going to be able to coach for 3 years.
We just kind of glossed that over. But Chip got out while the getting was, Chip's run at Oregon only lasted so long. Yeah, because it was going to end.
You guys shut up.
Yeah, if he didn't leave, they're making the leave and go for him.
He got caught red-handed. This happens all the time. When you know that the heat is coming around the corner, you get the hell out of there. No one sticks around for the fall. Urban doesn't stick around for it. Chip doesn't stick around for it. No
Sharon
one
Moore
does.
does.
Unfortunately, boy, well, maybe it is fortunate because he's the dumbass that was deleting text messages.
I just think Michigan. I just thought this after Harbaugh left and the whole Connor Stallions thing. I just thought, they're about to be a giant mess.
Yeah.
And I still think that. I don't really understand why we flipped the script on, watch out for Michigan, top 10 team. This is a mess. They're a low-key disaster right now.
It's possible.
There is a lot of stuff going on at that
Be
program.
very, very interested to see what happens to them this year.